Prompt and data view, what's it about? What do we want to achieve with this? I guess the most important piece is really, as you see the title, prompt times data. We see synergy there. We see a lot of value there. And so that's really what this interface change was about. We wanted to bring the power of generative AI to the power that you already had in Human First, which is the incredible ability to query data, curate that data, and then obviously for anyone who comes from the NLU background, classify that data and build reliable models. That combined with prompting gives really powerful workflows. So first and foremost, prompt and data, PXZ view, it's about letting you run generative AI on your data easily. So that's the first part of it. Second why of the prompt and data view is that Human First is striving to be a horizontal tool, right? We're not a replacement to any generative AI provider, whether that's OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, you name it. We want to integrate with them regardless of who they are. And our strong belief is that, well, rather, not really a belief, but an observation. Like we've been in the AI space for 7 years now. Before generative AI, it was all the NLU chatbots, and that is the same industry, different type of solution, but it's an industry that moves very, very fast. And what we've observed is that if you overcommit yourself to one provider, within a quarter, that provider might become obsolete because someone else, someone better has come out, and now you have to adapt everything to that new provider. And so one thing we want to provide is we are model agnostic, we are provider agnostic, and we let you use whatever tools it is you want to use. We're really just the interface that helps you do these things better. The third reason for why PXD is that anyone who's used OpenAI or really any of these conversational interfaces with generative AI today, one of the problems that's come up fairly often in our discussions with customers, obviously at the enterprise level, but also from users that are just doing own personal explorations around these generative AI, is that it's very easy to lose track of how you got to a result. When you're doing it through OpenAI, it's a very long conversation, lots of back and forth. The structure is very freeform, which is great for certain types of workflows, like let's say creative work. But when you want something structured, something repeatable, something testable, you want to be able to validate it, and you want that observability on how you get to something. That's really a key tenet in PXD. We want to make sure that throughout all of your workflows in Human First, you can always observe the steps that were taken to get there. Finally, the fourth tenet here is that everyone's going to use AI every day in their work. We're really just at the beginning of this. And so a guiding light rather for us is to make sure that your ability to use prompts in your daily workflows is really important. And so the ease with which you can do so is really a driving tenet of our prompt and data engineering interface. All right, so I'll give you a very quick walkthrough of what that interface looks like, what you can expect in PXD, and then Lauren's going to go over a more advanced demo where she's really going to dive into the weeds of everything. So this is what PXD looks like when you log in and when data has already been uploaded to the interface. Now, please don't give too much weight to the data that's in here. I purposely kept it simple, so we just have a list of different produce, whether it's fruit or vegetables, as simple an example as I can think of. But it's there so that you really focus on the pieces of the interface. So what do I have in front of me? The first area that you're probably all familiar with if you've ever seen a demo from Human First or worked with Human First yourself is the data interface. So we have a huge variety of filters and data predicates that can help you surface the data you're looking for that you then want to work with. Obviously, you have all the power of clustering, which is a very popular tool, the power of keyword or semantic search. So being able to do that semantic similarity with existing data to surface more data that resembles it is obviously present in PXD, as it's been always the case in Human First. So that's for the data view. I won't go too deep into this one because it's a fairly familiar piece for a lot of people. However, the very important part for PXD is prompts. So prompts, we have a library of prompts that you'll be able to reuse across your workspace, share with your colleagues, and collaborate on these various prompts. This library behaves a lot like things you might have seen in the past, labels or intents. So I'll just go through this very quickly. In a prompt, you can structure your prompt to leverage it against the data. I won't go into the prompt content and how you structure a proper prompt. Lauren will do that for us. But as you can see, we can also define the settings of our prompt. We can define the models we want to use. And this is on a per prompt basis. So even if I'm in a workspace where I've started working with OpenAI, for example, I could then move away from OpenAI and start working with, say, Anthropic without having to change much in my workspace because I can just toggle that preference from my prompt directly. Even for the same prompt, I can make, for example, one run using ChatGPT 4.0, and then I could use a more legacy system that I know is more stable with my use case and go back to GPT 3.5. And so I can toggle these across the runs of my prompt and my data together as desired. Another important piece is the ability to observe, right? I was talking about observability before. So some of the data here has already been generated. For example, I have generated the vitamins that are present in each of these produce. So I'll just get the original data like this. Okay, so for celery, vitamin K, vitamin C, and potassium. Great. You can always inspect an item in Human First, and you will see, obviously, the item itself. You can also see what was used to extract that information. And if you go to the details, you have everything you need to really get that full context. So the utterance that came out of that generation run, the prompt that was used to get that information, and the data that was used to run that prompt was run on. And so you have all the insights of how the output here was provided. Now, this is a very simple example, but in many use cases, we see very large documents. So when you go back to the source conversation, oftentimes here you'll see a much longer form document, which is very helpful to see what the source was before a prompt was run. Because oftentimes, a simple use case we see, but a very common use case is I have these customer support conversations, and I want to know if this was properly addressed by the agent. Well, in here, I'd have a full conversation, and then my output response would be yes or no, it was properly answered. So that's for the inspection. Another part of the data that's very powerful. So querying data here lets you run data queries, kind of like you would, say, a Google query. Now, you can save a Google query, and if you go back to it in a few weeks, the query is the same, but the data might have changed a little bit because new things come online. That's what's going to happen here with your data, where you can save a data query, but if people add more data to your workspace or take some out, that might shift a little bit. If you want to work with something specific that will never change under your feet, we have what we call the stash. So you can select a subset of your data, move it to stash, and now you have a stable set of data to work with. And really, that's the flip between data and stash. One of them is you're getting data from everything you provided to Human First. And on the other side, you're structuring a list of data that you're going to work with repeatedly, and that's not going to change under your feet. So PXD is driven by these three pieces. Your prompts that determine the workflows that you're going to execute on your data. The data, obviously, which is what you're going to ingest with your prompts, because that's what you either want to transform, summarize, extract. There's a variety of use cases here. And finally, the stash, when you want to control a subset of data reliably and consistently across your use cases. I almost closed my presentation, but there's one last piece I wanted to show you. It's the integrations. So in the integration section, I was talking about being a horizontal tool that supports a variety of providers. So as you can see here, we have native integrations for Anthropic, OpenAI, Google's Vertex, Cohere, and we're adding new integrations every week. And so this list is only going to grow because Human First, one of our goals is to integrate with all these providers, letting you use whichever tool best fits your workflows. Because OpenAI might be the best today, and it might not be the best in a month from now. OpenAI might be the best, but also the most expensive. So maybe you don't need all the power of OpenAI and you can go for something that's less expensive. And so we were really leaving that control in your hands, regardless of your workflows.
That's an awesome walkthrough. And we wanted to kind of cement some of what Seb was saying and give you a bit of an interface tour through a use case. And the use case will show, at large, Seb spoke to it beautifully. We are really committed to kind of this mission of generative AI adoption across the workforce, across teams, anybody, and really across all kinds of work that you do. And AI makes it, much easier to start working with data. But I think also working with AI means starting to get comfortable working with data. Data can be anything, right? Data can be Seb's lists of vegetables. I think we actually don't always recognize how much data, how many inputs we work with every day, and how complex the calculations we do in our brain against that data to do the work we do. So the core question when we start to work in the prompt and data view interface is, can we have the AI follow those complexities? Can we codify the decisions we make, the inputs we take in, the things we consider, all the context we have about the task we want to perform, and start to hand it off incrementally to the AI until it performs it as well as we can so that we can do it at the click of a button. It's our expertise, it's our setup, but it runs without us having to do so. And think about how much more you could apply your expertise to in a day if you didn't have to do all these crazy calculations on the one-by-one inputs and could instead run that at the click of a button for any kind of tailored, aligned workflow you're trying to build. So that's what we're trying to do here. This demonstration walks through the very arduous process of analyzing RFPs, requests for proposal. I know this is a part of a lot of people's roles, and if it's not RFPs, it could be a different kind of proposal document or just different things you're trying to make sense of and respond to. Often we would think about this as there is the one expert in the team that is an expert at assessing these projects, understanding if maybe it's a good fit for our company, and crafting the proposal in just the right way such that we're able to bid on them. But bidding on these things is a full-time job, and we'd want to be able to solve this with the click of a button. So let's imagine, we're staring right for this exercise. We're a construction company, and we have some specialties, and we know what kind of projects are the right fit. So we are today this expert. We might be staring at a database like this with tons of projects and things that we need to read and understand, and scopes and budgets and timelines and things. And then we'll have to include an equally detailed response back to anything that we find is a good fit. Let's see how we can use the prompt and data interface in Human First to start to do this work. I'm going to jump into the tool, which you'll be familiar with, thanks to Seb. And what I've done is in my data view, I've uploaded 814 requests for proposals. Now, I've been told that this is perhaps a fictionally too large number and nobody would work with 800 RFPs, but what if you could? Might be good to analyze more. So for today, we have a data set of 800. If we think through just in bare terms what we want to do here, we want to understand for each of these projects, A, are we a good fit? Is this something we'd want to bid on? B, and this one's tricky, do we actually have capacity to do the project? So consider the complexities of the project, the budget, the timeline, the scope, but also consider my team and our availability and my staffing. Can we take this on? And finally, for those that the answer is yes, they're a good fit, and yes, we can take them on, we want to respond to the RFP. So this is the kind of continuous and tailored generative AI work that we want to start to get used to doing. So I've got my 800 RFPs. I'm going to open up my prompt library. You can see I've done some iteration. I've tested prompts. I've tried different things. I'm going to start to walk you through my workflow and how you could build something like this for another task that you're trying to tackle. So our first question, let's let that guide us. Are we the right fit? Okay, here's an example of a prompt I've started to build out, and we can finish it. So I've got my goal in the simplest sentence. I need your help deciding whether this is worth pursuing. And I'm giving it a little bit of super simple instructions. Check out the description of our company, compare our core competencies to the RFPs, and provide a rating of whether the opportunity is a good match. So I need to now give it this rating, right? That's a domain expertise thing that happens only in my brain right now that I need the AI to be able to adopt. So what's a bad fit? Well, I probably implicitly understand this, and I'm going to just kind of encode that knowledge into the prompt. So it's a bad fit if the opportunity does not require either experience in sustainable and green architecture, that's something we focus on, or if it does not focus on residential housing, care homes, other types of housing like university dorms. So that's our focus, sustainability and residential housing, care homes, and the like. Therefore, it's a good fit if it does have some of those focuses, and it's a perfect match if it clearly, would excel with that kind of extensive experience in those fields that I've just named. So I've just built out a quick rating scale to help transfer my understanding to the LLM so it can start to make these assessments for us. I'm telling it, here's the RFP. We have a placeholder here because this prompt is going to run on the items in our data view, however many I select. And I'm asking it to please respond with its reasoning for whether or not we're a good fit and the rating. Bad, good, perfect. So if I've just built a prompt like that, I want to know that it works. I'm going to test it on just one. So I've selected an RFP. I'm going to run it. And we will wait for this to load. Awesome. Reasoning, rating of fit. And as Seb said, on the observability side, if I look into this, I can see it's saying it's a bad fit. It requires landscaping services. Okay, we don't do that. And there's no mention of sustainability or green design. Okay, interesting. Now, I don't want to trust this just at face value. I want to look into my source. So, okay, landscaping services for residential housing. That's a good catch, right? We said residential housing is good, but we did not want to do landscaping services. So there's also no mention that I can see of kind of green or sustainable building. So I would probably agree here. This is not a great fit. Now, the reality is you're going to have to go through probably many turns of this to get the prompt analyzing in the same expert way you do. But even if it's 20 minutes spent here in the data view, tweaking this prompt, making it great, it's something you can use over and over and over again, and all your colleagues can use and come in into the prompt library and run the same prompt. So it's time well spent. But let's say that I love how this is performing. That's when I can use the pipeline feature in Human First. So we had 800 RFPs. We can go into the pipeline. We can ask, is this a good fit? And when we run that pipeline, I've gone ahead and done it already. We'll see for all of the 800, the answer of reasoning and rating of fit. This one looks like it's a perfect match. We could check that out. If I type in here rating, this is working by semantic similarity, and it's just taking all of those answers that are the rating of the fit. I can see perfect match, good fit, lots of bads. What I want to do, and this is where Human First excels, is I've gotten a prompt output that matters to me. I want that output to be attached to the original data so I can start to filter my data sets. I don't want to look at these bad fits anymore. I want them out of there, out of the data view. So I'm going to do a flow called batch actions. What batch actions allows me to do is reassign the values I've just got. So I'm going to reassign the prompt output back to the original source. I've already gone through this workflow, so I'll show you what the result is, but all you would do is press reassign values, and it gets computed back onto the source data, which means if I'm back in my RFPs, I can add my flexible data table, this is new, to see my rating. So for every single one, I'm seeing, okay, this one was deemed a bad fit. Same here, got a couple bads, perfect match. Awesome. Okay, Seb gestured to this, but one place the data view shines is we can now start to apply filters. So let's say that I want to see the RFPs in which the rating is either perfect or, the rating is a good fit. Let's say we have a little bit of capacity and we're good with the good. Okay, 352 of my 800 batch were rated either perfect match or good fit. So now I have this one-step curated data set where I'm seeing the RFPs that are relevant to me. Now comes our next question, can we do it? Capacity. So let's go back to see how we would build that kind of prompt. We're trying to estimate whether we'd be able to take this on. We're giving it a couple of instructions, and then in this prompt, I needed to consider my architect schedule. So I've actually got that data over here. Let's say that my lead architect has kind of this capacity. My project, I have a 0.7 full-time employee to give to this job, and so on with the junior architect. So I've got my architect schedule in there. I'm giving it that same placeholder for the RFP. And now this is an interesting part of the prompt. We want it to understand the scope that's in the RFP, the schedule that we have available, but we need it to understand how long these projects normally take. And that's where we can use something called a one-shot or a few-shot example prompt, where we're actually embedding examples into the prompt so we can consider and learn on the fly. So I have a couple of examples of past projects. I'm going to dump them all into the prompt. But this is actually data that could be saved in Human First that you could just pull up and dump right into the prompt. So I'm sharing Riverview as a project we worked on previously. Here were the requirements, the phase, and here's the hours that it took. So this is just kind of previous company knowledge that I'm now building into the prompt. I have two more examples here. So this is a few-shot prompt. And at the end, I'm asking, please give your answer, the reasoning whether or not we can take it on, and the verdict, yes or no. So let's go ahead and let's test this prompt on one that is a perfect match. Let's see if we might have capacity. And again, at this step, we just want to see that the prompt we've architected is working. I have some confidence in this because candidly, it was not me who developed the prompt. It was our very smart developers. But I will say this work is really approachable. And once you start to get the patterns down, you can start to prompt to get the output you're looking for. Awesome. So we're going to group this by the source. It's giving us a bunch of reasoning. It's actually doing the math of how much it's going to require from my lead architect, my project architect, and my junior. And it's telling me that comparing the hours, it thinks, yes, this is possible. Awesome. So I can look back again into this RFP. This is one that we do have capacity to take on. So now we know it's a good fit and we have capacity. Now I want to run that on my whole 352 RFPs that I deemed a good fit. So I've done that. I've set up the pipeline, and we're going to see a possible result for each of those 352. So a bunch of yeses, bunch of nos, and we're going to be able to, again, annotate these back onto the original data. So I'll walk through that same kind of batch actions flow. I'll take my possible yes, no, I'll reassign. And that means, again, when I'm back in my data view, I can add my annotated answer, possible yes, possible no. So let's take one more filter step. Now, I only care about the projects that have been deemed possible. Let's say possible contains yes. Okay, so now I've just gone with a couple of prompts, and yes, they took a second to set up, but all in the same space with my data, with my prompts, continuous prompting. I've identified the projects that are a good match. I've been able to assess our capacity to take it on. And this is the data set that I care about. Ideally, these are the things that I would want to bid on. So let's just take a quick look, and I promise I'll wrap up because the exciting stuff is coming next. But let's take a quick look at how we would do that kind of response flow so that we can actually get end to end, right? This data work has brought us to the point where we need to start to act on the data. So my response prompt, and I will save the copying pasting, but I've filled this out. This is all information that you could add to, take away, it might change over time. What I've got is the ask, so act as a bid writer and write a response. I've got a couple of instructions. I've got a quick guide on how to write a good proposal. So I'm just showing it, give us the executive summary, the technical approach, listing what a good proposal would contain. I've given it a little bit of helpful information about our company. So here's what we do. Here's our philosophy. This will help to kind of tailor the angle of the proposal. And I've fed in my team biographies so that it can bring those right into the proposal for me. And of course,
Lauren, we have a question that's relevant right now, actually. Could you click on the plus icon inside the prompt? The question is, how do I know which placeholder to put in my prompt?
That's a great question. Yes. Do you want to?
So that menu should give you a bit of the context. So in most scenarios, you'll find yourself using the text placeholder. So that's going to grab the text you're seeing on the right in the data view and inject it in each run of the prompt to get your output. There are also a few other placeholders for more niche scenarios, such as, so we have the conversation placeholder. So Human First is built, or rather was originally built around conversational data. That's less and less the case going forward. So we're still supporting conversational data, but more and more we'll be supporting a wide variety of data formats and file types. But this would let you get the source of the source conversation rather of, say, a user message. So that's what that placeholder is about. There's a few descriptions in there to help you understand what these placeholders are. And then there's obviously, you can inject the metadata, which lets you extract some additional information you've provided at the time you've uploaded your data to Human First. So those are the current placeholders available to you. But I'd say 9 times out of 10, you'll be using the text placeholder, which is really the one we're seeing be used the most by and far. Hopefully that answers the question.
Great question.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you. Thanks for jumping in. Awesome. Yes, exactly. So in this case, we'll want the text because we're working with text. If we were working with transcripts or conversations, we would do the same there. Great. Okay, so I've given it a lot of instruction. I've taught it kind of how to write a proposal like an expert. And of course, I only want it on the ones we want to propose to. Let's go ahead and test this prompt. It could be on anything. I'll just select it. I'll let it run. Sir, I see another Q&A, Seb. Oh, thank you. Oh, so kind. Of course. Okay, awesome. So what we're looking for is that kind of full-fledged proposal in this output. We've just run it on one, so we're expecting to see one. These columns are flexible. You can move them across the screen. You can kind of resize as you need to see what you're working with. Okay, so nice full summary. We've got the executive summary, the technical approach, all the things I've asked for. It's given a little summary blurb for everybody who's going to be working on the project. It's even proposing a budget and some timelines. Those are things that I could tune further to make them more accurate or custom to what I'm doing. And it's adding a little bit of a unique value proposition. So awesome. I can tweak this as I want. We might thank them for their consideration. We might have some, headers or things that we want to add in here. But as far as I want to go with this prompt, I'm able to. And finally, when it's ready for me, I can run it on that pipeline. When I set up the respond to all pipeline, I ran it only on those 234 good fits, which means that I now have 234 proposals ready for the right fit opportunities that we're able to take on. I'm going to just show you how this data view can kind of start to evolve. So let's take created at out. Now we can see the response against the rating, against the assessment of our capacity, and even against what we call example text, which is the original RFP. So I can see that RFP there. I can see that we found it was a good fit and that it was possible, and that this is the output. This is the proposal we're ready to give. So the last step here, let's make use of this work we've done. We can go into data actions and we can download a CSV. This downloads everything you see in the table. So you'll get those 4 columns, and what that looks like is this very efficient, very rough Google Sheets doc where you truly have every single RFP that you wanted to bid on that you had capacity to take on with its response there as well. So this is a little bit of work to set up, a little bit of critical thinking for sure, but a workflow you can apply anytime you have this task, and it results in, this could go straight into a Word doc. You could tweak it further, but it's a finished product ready to hand off to the rest of your team to show you've done your work. And maybe that you could take on more that day because it only took a couple of clicks. So that's prompt and data view in action. Seb, I am going to let you talk about the good stuff.
Yes, the future. Where are we going? So Lauren gave us a really nice view into what I'm going to call an advanced use case. In what Lauren demonstrated, you had very sophisticated prompts, you had very rich data that was fairly complex as well, and you extracted a variety of information, right? So that's really an advanced scenario. And what we wanted to demonstrate is the power of prompt and data engineering. You can get immense value at scale very quickly with these reusable, repeatable prompt and data engineering workflows. Now, how do you get there? So we have an item in our roadmap that we're calling threads. Threads is the entry point for everybody in the enterprise to get up to speed on prompting and on PXD, so what Human First is promising. Really, what you have to keep in mind is that Human First strives to be this horizontal tool for everyone in the enterprise for a variety of use cases. And Threads is really sort of that starting point for many people who are maybe a little bit less technical. So the example Lauren gave us was very sophisticated. So as someone who's already been working with generative AI might feel comfortable tackling that directly. Most people, that's not the case. And that's why we're coming up with threads. So what are threads? Threads are probably the part in Human First that will feel most similar to your experiences with other generative AI, such as OpenAI's ChatGPT or Anthropic, where you have a conversational interface. So threads at their core are a simple conversational interface where you can interact with an LLM directly and get a response. Very simple interface. The goal here is to standardize the interface. So once again, we were saying that we want to be this horizontal tool, whether using OpenAI or Google or any other provider, shouldn't matter. Under the hood, you decide what it's going to be. But for your users, for your team, they're going to get a standardized interface with the same capabilities across the board. So whenever one of these providers gets either more performant or the reverse, sometimes a new incumbent leader comes into the market and really shifts the table stakes. You can just change this under the hood, but your team will be used to the same interface, letting them get the same output and same habits developed through threads. So that's really one thing we're trying to tackle is making sure that we maintain the same capabilities across the board, regardless of what you're using under the hood. But also, Threads is that launch ramp to get people to the level of what Lauren was doing before. So at its core, you can have a simple conversational interaction with the LLM, but we want to get you to build the muscle of writing prompts and good prompts. So we have a concept called system prompts, and these system prompts will progressively expose you to providing better context to your generative AI, whatever you're asking it. And the one thing you'll learn the moment you start using generative AI, context is king. Context really drives the quality of the outputs you're going to get. And so Threads pushes you to start leveraging better and better context. Along that, at Human First, we also provide training to help you understand what good context is, how to structure that context, and how to really get the most you can out of generative AI. Once you've mastered the concept of writing your prompts, so providing your context, we'll then take you to the next step. How do you go from a conversational interface and start working with the pieces at scale? And that's what you're seeing now in this slide, where once you have an output you're happy with, you can start breaking it up into smaller pieces to work with directly. So you can do a variety of interactions like specific regeneration. So what is that? In this example, there's one of the outputs is selected, and I want to add an additional instruction to only update that part of the generative AI's response. For anyone who's ever used the chat interfaces, you can send a request, you get a response. Oftentimes they're very chatty, so they can be very long, and you might agree with most of it, but maybe you don't agree with something in the middle. Go try and edit that thing in the middle. It's a very tedious process. Through our threads, you can break that up and target specifically that middle piece and adapt it with an additional instruction to get a better output. The other reason why threads is so interesting, once you start segmenting your data, that's developing another muscle that's really important in Human First. Everything is about reusability and applying your prompt and data workflows at scale. And so you'll be able to take your outputs from the generative AI, send them to your data view that we've been demonstrating for the past 20 minutes, and really let you do more scalable workflows and interactions in the rest of Human First. If there's one thing I want you to take home about threads, it's your entry point into the prompt and data experience. It's really where you will discover basic level prompting and really upgrade progressively your skill set until you are capable of creating very sophisticated prompts like what Lauren showed us. And you'll also be developing the reflexes that are necessary to Human First to have an efficient workflow and a productive workflow in the rest of the application. Once you've mastered that, Human First becomes this really flexible tool where you can build your own workflows using the tools in whichever way fits your needs best. And that's really how we see Human First. Not everything is codified. It's very malleable. We want you to be comfortable with the concept of, what's a prompt? How do I make a good prompt? How do I validate it? And then what's all my data? How can I manipulate my data? And how can I combine these two together? And there's a variety of ways you can do that in Human First, and that's what we want to empower you to do. And that's going to be the feature of Threads. It's going to be released publicly by the end of the month. And so hopefully we'll have many of you eager to try it out as well.
Amazing. You heard it here first, and we got a deadline out of Seb, which means that it will be out by the end of the month. That is so exciting. I can't wait to show you guys. It's so amazing how the journey changes to get to start with that conversation. Often, even in an RFP use case, you want to just get your thoughts out. There's often reason to have a conversation with the LLM, but it's rarely the most efficient format to use when you're kind of up to speed and you know what you want to do. So it's really an awesome journey to get to start there and then move your way through the tool, and really excited to bring that to more teams. Well, we're at time. Seb, thank you so much. Thank you for the work done on this and for hopping on to tell us about it. For everyone attending, absolutely get in touch. We'd love to show you the platform, a personal walkthrough based on maybe the use cases you're thinking on or you're implementing currently in the organization. So I'll send a follow-up with the recording on demand and a link to get in touch, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you guys so much for your
Yeah.
time.
And for everyone, it's going to be released at the end of the month. So Threads should be there in the next 3 weeks.
Next 3 weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Seb.
Yeah.